It's 7:00 on Thursday, February 27th, and I will call the Finance Committee meeting to order. I have with me in the room from the Finance Committee, Tom Parkins, Dina Hardes, Maury Creighton, Andy Olderman, and myself, Sarah Melish. We have Peter Twining from the Finance Committee on Zoom. This meeting is being recorded. In addition, in the room, we have the town administrator, Greg Fetterspiel, the town accountant, Andrea Mainville, the fire chief, Jake O'Neilly, and 3 members of the select board, Kathy Bellata, John Round, and Ann Harrison. With that, the first item on the agenda is to discuss the revised fiscal year 26 fire department budget. And I believe people received things today or yesterday or whatever day it was. Wednesday.
That was good.
And then you incorporated that, Andrea, so it is incorporated as the last column in this package as well.
This right-hand column.
Yes.
Okay.
As one of the options, or?
The last quarter option.
I see, okay, yeah.
And that's reflected in the tax rate.
Yes.
Okay. Do people want to discuss all of the options or just the last option?
I guess maybe focus on the last option, because that's what's being presented in the budget. And unless there's, particular commentary that the chief has.
Oh, that's going to be confusing.
I'd like to, I know it doesn't seem like much to go the extra route, hire them now, except for that 115, there's another 115, I think, in the benefits part, right? It's usually, like, for a salary, what's the multiplier, 1.5 or so, for like a low?
No, it's not that high. Probably another 30,000. All in.
Oh.
Yeah.
So the like a
It's
private
less than
sector,
30%.
It's around 27%.
Okay. That's good to know, the loaded rate.
A little less than you thought.
Yeah, quite a bit less.
So the fourth option is to bring on assistant fire chief or deputy fire chief, whatever you want to call them, in the last quarter of this year. Is that correct, chief?
Last quarter of,
Next fiscal.
FY26. So a year and 2 months.
So April of 20.
Mhm.
Would you like to explain that?
Yeah, so obviously I've, as you know, I've been working diligently on the numbers and trying to make things work both picture-wise in the fire department, big picture-wise in the town. I think the fire department really needs this position, so I was trying to find different avenues to make it palatable on the short term and then the long. And that seems like option 3 would be the best option. Even though it's delayed, I think that we can make do in that short term, and some of the longer bigger projects are going to be coming online, and that will line up kind of in with those projects.
Yeah. And I would say, based on kind of what we've heard and what we talked about the last time when the chief was in, we sort of heard about the need for the deputy fire chief. I think for the sake of taking some pressure off the FY26 budget, it certainly helps to have it mostly out of play for at least the first 3 quarters.
I guess I'd find it helpful just to maybe reiterate what the needs are. I know there's a burnout factor,
A little bit.
I also know that there's a business continuation issue here.
Yeah, so one of the, looking at the different areas of the fire departments that have come in, we've kind of analyzed where our weaknesses were. We've addressed a significant portion of those. One of the ones that we haven't been able to tackle is fire prevention. We're doing the bare minimum, like if somebody needs to sell a house and they need a certificate of, smoke detector inspection, things like that, where that's the priority, obviously, because when you can't sell houses, you guys have already heard about it. But the inspections that we're not doing, and not doing on a
Like our,
regular basis are like tank removal inspections. For instance, today we just got a tank removal inspection or a permit request for oil tank removal. The removal's already taken place 3 days ago. They've just got accustomed to the inspection not happening, so they submit the permit after the work's been done. And that's not how the process is supposed to work. But they just know that the inspection's probably not gonna happen, so they just backload all the permits. So that's just one example of, the permits aren't being done. In addition to the community risk reduction, getting out to our elderly population, into the schools, we're starting to do a little bit of that. We just don't have the depth to do what we should be doing. And, try to minimize falls.
Okay,
go ahead, Jim.
on a little different note, but still fire. There was a service that you were looking at to collect billings for, is that something we could do in-house? Or is that something?
Ambulance billing?
Yeah,
I don't think we want to touch that with.
you don't want to touch
it.
it. So it's worth every
Yeah.
bit to have.
Yeah, because they do, not only do they do the billing, they end up doing the collections long-term if we have to, track people down. And they do 4% of our collectibles.
So it's 4%?
4% of the
Okay.
collectibles.
We also have programs to like scrub the addresses to make sure they're mostly correct and everything.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
they-
it's-
they audit it, so we
Yeah.
basically benefit from that because our collectibles are like 89%.
I-
So they're doing a great job. I
Yeah.
don't think we would get anywhere near that.
Okay.
I think collections is difficult for in-town people to do with residents.
You're dealing with all different insurance companies. I mean, it's all the coding.
Yeah.
It's better to have a
HIPAA
specialist.
rules. It's just, I
Okay.
don't think it's an area we want to go down.
Anything
Thank
else,
you.
Dean? Peter Twining, do you have any questions on this? Comments? Peter?
Audio muted.
It is muted. You are muted, so if you're talking, we can't hear you. Maybe he stepped away.
Yeah.
His name's up there.
Yeah.
Okay, Maury.
I wonder if you can send
I
that.
don't have any questions. I think option 3 makes sense.
Gail, can you hear us?
I can.
Okay, thank you. And Gar Morse has joined us. Okay, so Peter can hear us. He must have stepped away. Do you have anything?
No, nothing additional. I think option 3 is, seems like a reasonable approach for tackling.
Gar, do you have any?
I agree.
Okay. I mean, I think that it's important for us to start looking at some of the safety
Mhm.
measures that perhaps we're not spending
Right.
time on, and it makes sense that this gives us a little more to do that. We've kind of beefed up the line of the chain of command in town hall, and kind of makes sense to kind of deal with the fire department at the same time. Hopefully that's kind of the end of the
I don't know if it's worth talking about the SAFER grant. a
Yeah,
little
I
bit.
mean, so the SAFER grant was something that, again, it's like hitting the Powerball. The notice of funding is probably gonna come out mid to late March or April. We wouldn't, if we were awarded it, we wouldn't know until September or, August or September. And we could use that potentially. It can't be filled to fill administrative roles, but it can backfill firefighter roles. We do know that we're gonna have 2 firefighters leaving for retirement purposes, and we just had one put in their notice they're going up to Blastow to a non-transporting ambulance service. So we're in the process of backfilling that. The job opening's out right now. Staying up on top of these things is important. A community nearby us is running with 33% of the staff remaining. So they're trying to figure out what they're gonna do. So being proactive in backfilling the spots as they go, so. Once this opening is filled, the hope is to basically put out another request for applications to create a list that will keep on file for 2 years. That way our reaction time's a lot less than it would be if we had to go through the entire process. That way we don't see a bounce in overtime and things like that.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, can you just give us a summary of the sort of the training curve when you bring somebody on board? I know, the day they become an employee of the town.
Yep.
There's a certain amount of training and then they kind of pop out of that and they're full-fledged.
So.
How does that look?
So it all depends on the candidate you get. We've been very lucky. Our last 3 candidates have come in with firefighter certifications. They've come in as a paramedic certification. So literally they do 2 weeks a days. They're on group, and then their officer they work with is assigned to basically do their onboarding, mentoring, community awareness, things like that. If they have nothing, then paramedic school is about, call it 2 years, rounding up a little bit, 1 3/4 years. And then the fire academy is 13 weeks.
Okay.
So it all depends. It could be 2 weeks a days and they're on the group, or it could be 2 years and they're on group. We've been very lucky, I think, with the change in kind of the personnel, their view, and kind of the outsider's view on the town and the department has changed. So getting some good candidates in has been easier than it was in the past.
So if they're on that paramedic training,
Yep.
that's 2 years, they can obviously do a lot of things, but they have to be with somebody theoretically who has that full training. So that kind of curbs your ability to move people around a little bit.
A little bit. Right now, we're in a good spot because out of the 16 people, 15 are paramedics and
Okay.
one's an EMT. So we have that ability right now to be flexible. And, if they're in paramedic school, we can still utilize them if they're a firefighter because we just give them time off to go to school. If they're not in school, we can still reap the benefits of them being an employee. So we just have to kind of work with the schedule to optimize it for their schooling.
Good, thanks.
How many positions do you apply for under the SAFER grant?
So we'll put in for 4. The reason being is that it's usually tied to meeting an objective, i.e. that 2 in, 2 out rule is if you say by getting these 4, you meet the objective 100% of the time, it puts us at the top of the list of the people that are applying. The most recent grant, obviously it could change. I haven't seen the notice of funding. The last one was 3 years, paid everything, and there was no requirement after the fact. Previous notice of fundings, it kind of ramped up and the town had to kind of gradually start paying. This last one, they paid everything for 3 years, and there was you weren't tied to anything after that. So it's a great way if we know we're going to have attrition, it saves us a ton of money.
So we won't know for sure until we see the new,
Notice of funding.
right, and with the way things are in DC, we don't even know if the program's gonna continue,
This
so,
is out of federal?
yeah, these are federal
Okay.
dollars.
What's the rough acceptance rate? I mean, if you were to take a guess at how many people apply and how many people are awarded?
Everybody applies.
Everybody applies. Is
It's
it
very
like
competitive.
10%, 5%, 50%?
It's probably less than 5.
Wow.
We
Okay.
didn't get it last time, correct?
And last time we weren't in the position, we weren't going to meet a requirement 100% of the time, so it kind of reduced our grade.
Okay.
Now with where we are staffing, we meet that grade of meeting that requirement.
Mhm.
But it doesn't mean we have to actually do that.
Correct.
Okay.
Long term, I should say long term.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions on the fire department? Yes, Mr. Round?
Yes, question, Chief, for the Assistant Chief that's planned for the last quarter of this coming year.
Yep.
Can we assume that there aren't any training or extra costs, because this is a person that knows a lot?
Correct, and the cost, there wouldn't be a cost because they'd be on an administrative schedule, so if we had to send them to a training, it would be when they're already working. So in all the, if they were gonna go to some type of, fire officer school, et cetera, those are offered to the fire academy for free, and then they're also working during the day, so they have to go down to the fire academy for class.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, that's fine. And your expectation is a turnover of 2 firefighters this coming year? Or that's-
Within the next 2 years, I expect at least 2 to
Okay.
go, maybe a third.
And the budget, as was discussed, the budget implications there, it's very tough to know where we're at with the safer grants and what their background is, et cetera. So you can't really plan for
You
that.
can't plan it. I think we're in a much better position than we've been in historically.
Okay.
Would the deputy position be expected to have paramedic training?
Most likely.
Yeah.
It just adds for so much more flexibility,
Plus a familiarity with what the
with the staff.
department offers.
Yeah.
And then the second act.
Yeah.
Did you go out on runs?
Didn't I be the other day?
Lucky
I got it too.
You're
Even
lucky
better.
you didn't,
Even better.
you're lucky you didn't have my arm. Nobody can get it. So the deputy chief would also go out on runs?
Oh, yeah.
presumably. Okay. Any questions on the overall fire department budget? I know we've discussed it before. That was a while ago.
And approval.
Wait a minute, let me see if Peter has any questions. Peter Twining, do you have any questions on the fire department budget? Peter, are you there?
Ghosting us.
Yeah, but Gail came on, so he can hear us. Okay. Okay, you want to make a motion, Dean?
I move that we pass the fire department for $1,963,330.
Do I have a second?
Salary and expenses.
Second,
Maury seconds. Any discussion? Take a vote. Tom,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Maury,
yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Sarah votes yes. Peter? He's not there.
Missing action.
Okay. Okay, so fire is done.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wasn't as painful as you thought, huh?
No, I'll take it.
Easier than the last time.
Really
Um, So is sanitation the only other thing we haven't done? And okay. So should we do sanitation? Do we know what page it's on?
31. Was in the whole budget.
Yes,
Should be the same.
Yep, 31.
It changed.
Yes.
Twice.
So as I mentioned, we did get the new contract from Wheelabrator, the disposal company, the incinerator up in Andover, North Andover. Showing a fairly substantial increase for this coming year. And then around 4% increases in out years.
For how long?
I believe it's a 5-year contract. 5 or 3. 5, yeah. 5 years.
And
So that's not a lot of choices out there. The landfills throughout the state are closing. They're not opening up new landfills. We are still a customer, so we're happy to still be a customer, and they'll continue to serve us, but they are increasing the rates.
So can you help me understand the FY25 budget was 239, so the effect of this rate increase only brings us to 240.
So the 239 was more than we needed.
Okay.
over budget.
Was that expecting an increase at that time, or is it?
It was,
Or from usage?
it was really based on a projection of volume.
Okay,
So it is tonnage based.
got it.
And so then we, looking at the actual from 23, we dropped 20, let's see, 24, the 24 actual. We were estimating just a small increase, but that increase much higher. But if you look at the 25 that we budgeted, it's not that much more. It's
So-
$1,000 more.
So is the requested amount for 2026, is that based on a similar tonnage to what we actually saw
Yes,
more recently? Okay.
yes, correct.
Now, are we gonna be able to leverage the sustainability committee to increase the amount of composting?
Yeah, we certainly hope so. Because this is weight-based,
Right,
the more compost we can get out of the stream, you're definitely better off. So we're hit a bit of a plateau in terms of the number of people participating. We haven't seen much growth in that lately. I want to say it's about a third of the town.
is it that many?
It is, yeah. Might be pushing 40%. Be nice to try to get that up higher.
Maybe a little PR.
Yeah, so they've, committee's been talking to Tiffany about doing another campaign.
And is it worth making the bins available again?
Yeah, so we do. We have bins.
We have bins, okay.
One thing that works best in other towns is when the residents can just bring the compost instead of putting it out at the curb.
You can take it to the
To the site.
transfer
Right,
center. They have a barrel there,
Yeah,
next to the recycling bin,
right.
and you can put it in there.
That I would.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Yeah, it's probably not that well known, so that's another publicity
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
effort.
Because I actually took it there once because I was going out of town and
Me too.
But
either I wasn't composting for the week or I was gonna take it on Saturday.
This isn't the year we're gonna lose the orange bag revenue, it's the following year, right? Because we're gonna go to a different container system they were talking about?
Yes, so Republic will be requiring
Lift bins.
the automated
Yeah.
arm, the automated arm that picks
$100
up the,
$100 barrels.
so we'll have to talk about what we want to do about that in terms of,
Is that FY '27 stuff though?
yes, yeah, most likely. They did talk to us a couple months ago about possibly making that transition sooner, but we haven't heard back from them. So we've put in a few calls and say, what's going on, folks? 'Cause they did talk to us a couple months ago, possibly making that transition sooner and starting a new contract soon.
Giving free bins.
Has anyone considered making it the land at the dump, like a rental agreement with Black Earth, as opposed to compost collection? Like, if we had that land, say, if we had a bank of solar panels there, what income would we be getting off that land? And shouldn't we be charging a similar amount for their use of it? I mean, that might be a way to look at revenue streams down the road, but because that.
So we're getting a pretty substantial discount on the compost pickup.
Yeah, I don't think it would, it would match though, what we would get as regular rate.
So the next step, assuming they can reach a higher volume, if the board amends the contract to allow a higher volume of composting, then our compost cost will go down to zero.
Yeah, well,
So,
I think the other approach seems more reasonable to do a straight rental, but rather than that, but that's down the road.
We have a contract with them now,
yes,
right? Right.
yes.
And what's the duration of that? I can't recall.
Well, it's a 10-year renewable contract.
Yeah.
And I'm forgetting, so there's certain thresholds, so as more volume is handled, we get a bigger discount on our compost
Do we get payments at some point if it goes over a certain amount?
I'm sorry,
Do we get payments back if it goes, I thought if we got payments back, it went over a certain amount,
over a certain amount, yes, and then,
they had to pay us. Yeah, okay.
but first it goes to zero cost,
Right,
and then the next tier would be payment.
you're not holding your breath for payment.
No. But to go to that level, I believe, if I'm remembering my numbers correctly, it would require an amendment to the DEP permit. I think that's above and beyond what's permitted.
Oh, okay.
That's not out of the question, assuming things are running well and that sort of thing, but it would require revisiting that.
We have a sense of how many people in town are participating in that compost program? And I guess more importantly, is the trend holding or is it declining?
So it's holding.
Yeah.
I want to say it's in the high 30% range.
Yeah.
But it hasn't grown
Mhm.
lately.
Because if it declines down to a low point or zero, Dean's argument starts to make a lot of sense here. Apart from the benefit of doing something environmentally sound, it's just
Yeah, so it's something we, so DPW gets their quantities it's monthly or quarterly.
Mhm.
But we do track their volumes and how much participation we have from residents.
You know how they're,
Hello? Hi, I don't know
excuse me, would you please,
how to raise my hand.
would you please state your name and address?
Sandy Rogers, 82 Old Essex Road. I'm
Okay.
speaking because I'm on the Sustainability Committee.
Yes,
The numbers that we have been hearing from Black Earth is that we are at over 50% of residents.
Behind the times.
And that is a very large amount versus other communities. So we are doing everything that we can to try to promote, and we'll be keeping on that to promote the composting. But to expect it to make a huge difference going forward, we would have to then really incentivize the commercial entities. So I have a question regarding, if the contract, and the amount of tonnage that we get from our commercial entities, the restaurants, the clubs like Essex County Club and Yacht Club, we're trying to, sort of up the ante regarding what we can do to try to incentivize them. I don't know how much of the tonnage can be portioned out and understood between that, but just wanted to give you sort of an update on those numbers. Thank you.
great, thanks a lot.
Chuck has his hand up.
Chuck Dam. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can speak to some of these numbers just real briefly, so they're starting out at 30 tons a week through the building. And so that's kind of the threshold. I'll have to check, I think Sandy's probably right that we're probably getting closer, maybe a little over 50% townwide, but that is not the entire 30 tons per week. So that number, that 50% number probably represents something like, I would say somewhere between 7 to 10 tons a week. So that's what's coming from the town. And then they have other routes, this is supposed to be a regional facility. So no matter what, they always have to take any tonnage from the town first. And then they can supplement that up to 30 tons a week. And then we can add additional tonnage as the kind of process bears out. So kind of like what Greg was saying, if they're meeting their odor requirements, if they're meeting their sound requirements, if the traffic's not bad, stuff like that. We and then DEP will allow them to up that tonnage on a weekly basis. So, like I said, always they're taking the town stuff, then they can supplement that. And then, so these things that Sandy's talking about for the, say the schools or the country club or anybody else, they could theoretically be part of that 30 tons a week. However, that's not taking and diverting tonnage away from, Wheelabrator, because that's, the commercial tonnage is separate of the town curbside program. So like, these are all kind of things that have been considered and, kind of factored in, but there is definitely a path forward, I think, with what all of you guys are saying, whether it's increasing the tonnage, increasing the incentives, for that last 50% of, households and so on and so forth. But, it's just, we have to kind of let the process play out and make sure that they're meeting the kind of environmental requirements that they've said they will. That's all.
Thank you. On the town social media, Facebook, we have the little bin thing for recycling. Every week, there's a picture of a bin,
Uh-oh.
and it shows pictures of what you can recycle and what you can't recycle. I'm wondering if we could have a little compost bin
Oh, that's a
explaining what you can
Sure.
recycle, and what you can compost and what you can't compost.
great idea.
Because apparently they used to compost pizza boxes, and now those are recycles.
PFAS.
Oh, is that what it is?
Good.
Yes.
So it does seem as though a PR campaign to encourage our residents to take part in the compost posting program has a three-way benefit. One is that we help the environment, with obviously. The second is we reduce the poundage that Wheelabrator, is it Wheelabrator, picks up. And so we save money. And then
Yes.
the third way that we benefit is there is a third way.
We pay less for the
ourselves.
compost service.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Yes.
I knew you were going to pitch
I
in.
was gonna save you on the time.
Thank you.
Less traffic
So
on
there's
Pine
a
Street.
three-way benefit to composting if you're not composting now. The town benefits in three ways. Wow.
Sarah?
Hi, Peter.
I think there's a fourth way, which is if we gave better instructions about what is recyclable, that would
Compostable.
also help.
Compostable.
In other words, be more precise about what to recycle, what's eligible, in what condition. I think that would help the recycling also.
Yeah, I think that there is something on the town Facebook page,
There
which
there
does
is.
address that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think it could be expanded to be more precise.
Okay.
There's always this argument about whether milk containers are recyclable in a waxed paper.
Yeah, and they're not.
And that kind of
So
thing.
are
I
we
think
talking
would
about
be-
recyclable and compostable are two separate things, right?
Right.
Okay.
Peter's talking recyclable, we're talking compostable. But we need both up there. So we
That's
can
true, yes.
figure it out.
I mean, maybe a topic for Tiffany is to create a contest here
Yes.
where people could weigh their recyclables and weigh their
Yes.
whatever. And if they
Yes.
hit 250 pounds, they get a free ice cream on the town at Captain Dusty's or something, you know? And they're naming the cricket.
Sort of like the,
You know?
the yacht club gives out an ice award.
True.
We have the compost award.
Exactly.
You know, Black Earth now has something called the CHARM program,
Yes,
and that also takes the whole thing another step or two. If people were apt to know anything about that, I think it's worth some additional information on the CHARM program.
well, and it's my understanding that the residents of Manchester can put any type of textile and shoes on top of their compost bin, and it's picked up for free by Black Earth.
Yes.
So they don't
that's
have to
right.
pay for charm for the textile piece. And it can be rags, it can be donations, and I've done it many times.
Mhm.
It's gotta be in a white plastic bag.
We'll have to talk.
Well, the biggest thing for Black Earth as well is the Board of Health qualified to oversee their testing program. I mean, they're bringing a lot of material into town to process, and we want to make sure it's not hazardous. You know, one thinks of compost as not being hazardous, but who knows what people are putting in their compost bins and Lynn and
They do
Swampscott.
they do test their compost.
I know they do, but do we have the capability to oversee it? Because we're in a very environmentally sensitive area there.
So we have, I think it's quarterly testing now that we do by a third party. And that's, all those reports are submitted to DEP, so it's not Board of Health, it's DEP. What the
The
town,
state's doing it.
is required because it's, it's a closed landfill. So, and it's a transfer station, that the town is responsible for. So like all of these things are part of the permitting process that we went through to get Black Earth in there in the first place. And then we have to continue with that compliance going forward forever. So, this is all stuff that's been overseen.
Do I have a motion to approve the sanitation collection and disposal budget in the amount of $680,000?
So moved.
Second.
Gar moves, Andy second. Any more discussion? Take a vote. Tom,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Gar,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
and Sarah says yes. Okay. So we're done with that except for OPEB and the school. So we need to talk about the capital budget. And you sent us an email today about additional possible expenditures in capital.
Yeah.
I'm almost wondering if we should start with the OPEB discussion and whether we want to use reserves.
That's fine, but I do want to share some new information.
Okay, sorry.
That came through later today.
Yeah.
So there, and I'm talking about the rotunda. So the rotunda, we're anticipating the ability to go after two grants, $1 million apiece. Seacoast Economic something like that. Seaport Council monies for $1 million, which we're pretty confident in, since they have funded the design work, and typically when they fund the design work, they are pretty amenable to funding construction. And we were hoping then to submit a second grant to CZM, Coastal Zone Management, for $1 million. They have much less money to give out. They had $25 million, now they only have $5 million to give out. So there's no way we're going to get $1 million grant from them. And I'm doubtful that we will rise to the top. As this, looking through their criteria, they just released it today on a video conference where they're looking for projects that are going to protect people from harm. Rotunda is not going to rise to the top.
Well, you could fall off if it gets wrong.
You could.
Fall farther if they were,
So I'm skeptical
Okay,
of that $1 million coming.
so what's the total cost for the rotunda?
Total cost is 2.3.
2.3, and
So
we had 3 from,
We had 3 from
CPC.
CPC. I'm wondering if we ask that to be boosted to 5,
okay,
and then grab another 8 from fund balance, and give Chuck another 2 in road projects. As the note indicated, we're probably underestimating repaving costs.
I would rather put 200 into OPEB than put it into roads.
You've got a major road that you need to repave, so the Pleasant Street Road needs to.
Well, we paid for that last year. We have that in the budget for last, the bond for Pleasant Street repaving.
Yeah,
Yes.
some of that money is going to. Well, Chuck, help us out.
Chuck,
That's the water main was the bond.
Right.
So there's three
We're talking about
projects.
paving.
The
They
water
included
main,
the soup.
the
Okay.
PFAS and the meters. So we do have some paving money in the budget, but it's not going to cover the basically the inflation over the past year, when, because that the paving has an escalation in it anyway, but we're rebidding it now. So it just, it was based on the previous years.
How much do we have in this year's budget? The fiscal year 25, and how much have we spent?
I'd have to defer to Greg and Andrew, I don't have it in front of me. But I mean, I think we're probably short of 400,000 based on the email that I sent to Greg. I don't know the precise numbers off the top of my head.
Back to the
So-
rotunda.
So the, well, so the debate about, so we have about $1 million, $1.1 million that you could use in addition from the fund balance to get down to that 8% target. So you have up to 1.1 that you can allocate. My strong sense from the community is that they're not going to want to see that rotunda collapse and
I agree with that.
and go away. So I do think that's a priority.
That's a priority over the Reed Park stuff. I mean, because that's the same grant, right?
What are you talking about? He's saying we
If
have a
it-
$1 million grant for Rotunda.
Right. If
That's
we-
not talking about Reed Park.
But we're short the other $1 million, right?
The most you can
Right.
get for any one project from Seacoast is 1 million.
Right. So would we prioritize the rotunda over the harbor if there is a limited grant pool?
So we don't have any money going to Reed Park, town money. That's all potentially grant funded,
From the economic seaport, from the same people that were asking for the
or
rotunda?
already awarded.
So I'm just saying, can we
They're not,
go
they're not
with
going
the
to allow us to,
priority?
they're not going to allow us to shift it. So we can request an additional million for the rotunda. And like I say, because they have funded the design, I'm pretty optimistic that they'll grant.
It sounds like we could set a priority between the rotunda or the Reed Park with that money, but it's our
He's
choice.
expecting $1 million from Seaport Council for Rotunda. And he's saying you can't have more than $1 million for a project.
So we already have $1 million.
That's what he's expecting.
Okay, okay.
It's-
Well, I'm
it's
just
the
trying
C-
to arrange the
It's
priorities.
a CZM that's the issue. Right.
So you're thinking
So-
a million from the CZM, and you're thinking CPC goes from 300K to 500K, and then we pull 800 out of fund balance, which gets us to 2.3.
Yes. And, so that, we don't have a bid yet. That's, that 2.3 has a contingency in it. So, if we were lucky, it would come in a little lower and we wouldn't need to spend all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it could go the other way as well, so.
Do we have any monies in this fiscal budget that we're expecting to go into free cash at the end of the
So you have your library,
150?
150.
Just back on the rotunda thing for a moment. That's gone through all the engineering, it's gone through the permit. Does the permit have a 30% contingency in it? I presume both engineering's work.
Yes.
And are they?
I don't remember the exact percentage.
Contingency in design or construction?
Construction.
Construction, yeah. Yeah, we're done with design.
So the 2.3 you're saying includes a
Contingency.
30%?
Yeah. And so the 2.3 is a pretty hopefully safe number,
That's what I'm,
depending on contractor from
correct.
north or south.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, in the past, we've gotten good bids.
Right. Hopefully again.
Hopefully, nobody else will have grants so that people will be looking for work.
That's true. That's true.
That's one way to look at it.
That's a silver lining, I guess. But yeah,
So Greg, with the, so by that apportionment, additional to make 5 from CPC, hopefully, and the split that you were talking about, leaving 200K for the road resurfacing ad, still leaves us 200K shy for that road resurfacing. If I was understanding Chuck correctly.
Greg's only asked for 200K.
I understand.
Chuck's just throwing out 400K now.
I assume it's not out of thin air.
You see the freeze thaw season that we're having, the
No,
roads
no,
are
I'm
really
just-
going down.
No, I mean, it's an educated guess
Yeah.
for the 400.
Right, so, just like Greg was saying, hopefully the bids come in good for the rotunda, we're hoping the bids come in good at paving and, one way or another, I'll make it work. It's just the 400K would make me feel good about it. And, like I always say, if I don't spend the full 400K, it'll go towards the next road, or the next road.
Okay,
I'll figure it out. But, 400 was the, we were trying to spend $1 million, that was the number. If I can get 200, then I'll make sure we use it wisely.
So can I just ask a question here on the sheet? I think you sent us, Andrea, earlier today. Looks like road resurfacing is 300K. So are we talking about 300K to 400K, or are we talking about a different amount?
Adding 200,
Adding 200 to the 300 for,
is that what you're saying, or?
because I'm looking at the DPW line on
It's
the
for
articles.
300.
Yeah, 300, exactly.
So there would be an additional 200 on top of the 300.
Okay, all right.
Or 400 or whatever. So that's the 300 is town money. There's also chapter 90, about 150 on top of that.
Is chapter 90 strictly state funds, or is it a federal pass-through?
It is
State.
state fund, yeah.
And they've talked about increasing chapter 90.
They did,
correct?
yeah. So the governor has proposed
Yeah.
50,
Is that in the budget that's out there to be approved?
that's in her budget.
Okay,
We got a long way to go on the state budget, so we won't know until July.
if we're lucky.
Yeah, if we're lucky.
Right, and that's the other thing is my hope is to, the money for a roadway, whatever it ends up being, is available at town meeting. So, Greg's right, we do have some chapter 90 that we haven't spent from this year. But, the available, what we count on in the FY26 budget for chapter 90 is not available from the state until 7/1. So, I'm looking to line this up so that we can do this work as soon as possible after town meeting, based on, potential detours and whatnot come fall. So this is kind of how this is all lining up.
So what I want to know is what the budget is for fiscal year 25, including the chapter 90, and what have we spent it on, and what do we plan to spend? Because we just allocate money every year, and we never get an accounting of what it's spent on and how much is left.
Right.
Right, well, so we do, so we did Walker Road this year, so that was the big one. Andrew, you'll have to help me out if you have it in front of you.
Walker Road was last
But we
year.
have- No, we just did Walker Road, you said FY25.
Yeah,
So we
you
had
did it
FY25.
before July, didn't you?
No, that we did the water main last year, last winter. We did, Walker Road was in September, October.
September, yeah. it was the
Because-
fall.
We had 700,000 for drainage last year, for the road resurfacing last year.
Plus the chapter 90. Chapter 90 is not included in that.
Chapter adds in, yes, 850.
Right, so I believe I have around 300,000 in chapter 90 funds, that are unspent today. So that's part of the money that will be spent on Pleasant
Pleasant
Street.
Street. That's what I thought.
For paving. And so, I think we will have a shortfall. My estimate was around 900,000 last year when we, executed the Pleasant Street work on the water main. The current estimate, which includes contingencies, and it might come in better, is about 1.3. So that's where I'm getting the 400 delta. Now, like I said, we have some money still available from FY25, we still have some money from chapter 90. But if I add up all these buckets, we're not at 1.3. So that's all I'm trying to cover. If we can do it, then great. If not, I have other levers I can pull when it comes to doing a mill and overlay versus doing a full reclaim, and I can do 1.5 inches a top versus 2 inches a top, or I have other levers that I can do within the design and construction. But if we want the best possible outcome for a 20-year road, then I'm thinking I need about 400,000. So that's where this is all coming from.
You're throwing a lot of numbers at us. I'm sorry. You said you expecting Pleasant Street to be 900K, And then you
Last year.
changed it to 1.3 million.
Right, so 900,000 last year was, when we were lining up that, when you said we had 700,000 in the budget so far, so on and so forth, to 300,000 from chapter 90. That contract was up, so it expired, it was only through calendar year 24. The work will take place in calendar year 25, so we do a 3-year on-call paving contract.
Okay.
Based on the quantities of Pleasant Street and, suspected escalation and inflation, the estimate that we're looking at is for the same job, is about 1.3. So that's the 400,000 difference. Now, that is a full reclaim, sidewalks, curbing, it's not new curbing, but it's reset the existing curbing, all that stuff. So that is, that's a 20-year life cycle job. That's how we've been doing. That's what we did on School Street. That's what we did on Walker Road. So that's how we like to do things. If I don't have that money available, or if the bids come in, not advantageous, then I will go to a mill and overlay, and we will do it a different way, and I will get the job done. But that's not to say that's how I want to do it. That's just what will be necessary.
Is there an engineering recommendation for full depth at Pleasant Street?
I mean, if you drive down Pleasant Street, I would say it's pretty obvious. So, this is not a new road or a good road. I don't know what they did the last time they paved it, but we did do the service connections in 2018, and so that was already, it was already a deteriorated road.
Peter, do you have any comments on this?
I'm sorry, did you ask me a question?
Yeah, do you have any thoughts on this road resurfacing mess?
None that are particularly unique. I'm very sensitive that we try to do the job that Chuck wants. But I'm still a little confused by where we are with the numbers. The 400,000 is a new number to me. I'm not sure I understand where we can source that money.
So perhaps we can just review the revenue that we think we have, the dollars that we have. So you have that, Andreas and Chuck try to do that.
The revenue for.
So we have,
right now.
Chuck, I think you said we have about 300 in chapter 90 monies.
302,000.
302, all right, that's about 300.
Yes.
So that's in the bank.
Yeah.
And any unspent 25 paving money.
I have 195,000 right now in the road maintenance account.
195. Okay. So I think we have the 3 buckets. We have
So we have 500K approximately currently in bank.
approximately 500.
Yep.
The request was for 300 more in town money, and then 150 more in chapter 90. A little bit of timing issue because of that chapter 90, as Chuck said, doesn't become available.
That's 950.
Sometimes they try to, so that would be the 950, which would have paid for the original project.
Right.
Okay, so that's how that was the original thinking.
Yep.
So now if the 900 becomes a bigger number, that's where the request for additional dollars comes from.
And on what basis are we calculating this upcharge?
So Chuck, have you had some conversations with contractors or other?
Right. So we have to bid this contract. So it's a unit-based contract. So it's based on tonnage of asphalt, structures, linear foot curbing, sidewalks, the whole driveway aprons, all that. So we have a quantity takeoff design, engineer design. That's what the quantities are based on for Pleasant Street, and then we apply. We don't even apply escalation to the previous contract. What we do is we look at the DOT numbers on the DOT website that's based on, DOT bidding. And so, based on that that accounting, at those unit quantities, the number came out to 1.3. So that, that's just how every project goes. We estimate it before we put it out on the street. Like I said, I have some other levers I can pull, but, Greg asked me if we had additional capital needs, and I said, we're likely looking to be short on roadway.
Sarah,
Yes, Peter?
is there also a timing issue here, Chuck, for the Chapter 90 funds are not available until July 1st? I wasn't sure if you were also indicating that that was a timing issue also for you.
Right, so we have the 300, we try and save up these Chapter 90 years, in for things like this. So like Andrew said, we have about 300 in the, from prior years with, FY '24 and FY '25. So that 300, I will plan to use that to, make this work. The 150 that, is in this year's budget for FY '26, we don't get that passed down from the state until July. So I don't really have that 150 available for the Pleasant Street project, assuming we try and get it done ahead of 7/1, which is my intent.
I see, so there is a timing issue because the 150 will not be available until after you'd like to get the project done.
Correct.
So essentially those funds remain unavailable. Right, as a practical matter, to be applied to the Pleasant Street resurface.
So the next line item is 400,000 for drainage, sidewalks, and sidewalk improvement.
Right. So some of that drainage number will go into to Pleasant Street, because we do have some drainage work that needs to be done. We will have castings that need to be replaced, stuff like that. Some of that is included in the 1.3 million, some of it will not be, the pipe work will not be. So that is stuff that will get used. Yeah, so that is part of the bucket that we will dip into.
So how much do we have drainage, sidewalk improvement from last year? Or this year, whatever. Do you carry these over, Andrea?
I do.
Okay.
Right.
So what do we have unspent on that line item?
So for the road paving, we have the 195
Yep.
right now. Assuming that we're not gonna spend anything before June 30th. And then for the drainage and sidewalks, we have 130,000
130.
right now.
Right, but that has to go towards, that doesn't just go towards Pleasant Street, that goes towards street sweeping in the spring, catch basin cleaning in the spring, and, there's other maintenance stuff. So even the 400,000 that you're looking at for FY '25 or FY '26, that all gets, there's other things that goes towards every year.
So we have nothing left over in that line item from fiscal year '25?
We'll have some amount that carries over, but it's not the full.
I'm sorry,
whatever
fiscal year
number
'24.
said.
Fiscal year '24, did we have any left?
The fiscal year 24, I carried over $92,000.
But that's now been drawn down, so that line, the balance is today, whatever Andrew just said before that. That 92 has been included.
That 95 was carried forward and was part of the bucket. And that bucket now stands at 130.
So sort of back to Peter's question about a timing, don't we have the same timing question with the town? Because we'll vote on this in end of April. We can't spend it till July 1,
If it
right?
comes out of free cash.
Unless we take it out of free cash.
I mean, we were looking at, Peter and I were interning with the DPW, and we were talking about an $800,000 drainage sidewalk and a $4 million capital to kind of tread water with maintaining, those were good numbers that we could. And, the capital this year is $2 million below that because of all these extra operating stuff for the government and everything. Or whatever, for whatever reason.
You can't forget the amount of capital we had in for DPW last year that's
Right.
being bonded.
And we still have more to do.
7.5 million.
I know. Okay. I'm just saying that the burn rate is, I think Chuck is justified with the 400,000 to finish the paving. And the thing is that we're shortcutting the capital this year.
We haven't
boost.
finished yet.
Okay. We have.
I mean, we purposely had higher capital last year that
Right.
was flowing into this year because we were going to bond it.
Right.
So yet last year's was in effect 2 years' worth of capital, if you look at the 7.5 million. Right?
Right. Well, we were taking a break from the capital by design to give the taxpayers a break this year before the bond next year.
So you said 1.1 million in free, to get down to the 8%, we can add the 150 to that also, right? Because we know that's going in at the end of the year in the library.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
Yep.
So
So 1.25.
1.25. And you want 800 for the rotunda, which is, leaves only 450. So we have nothing extra to put into.
I think we're still on a good track, though.
Yeah, but here's my concern, Andy. The next 4 years of capital is assuming a 2.5% hit to the tax rate every year, plus the normal 2.5% from operating, plus whatever the schools are. Our OPEB annual contribution is 1% tax rate. So if we were able to fund a larger portion out of that, out of free cash, that's going to reduce the impact on capital
Think more about, sure.
next year. Now, the other question I have on OPEB is once that's fully funded, am I correct that we start paying premiums out of it?
Correct.
And what,
So that's a double savings.
right, and what type of money is that? Do you have any idea? It's just for the retirees, right?
Correct.
I think it's in the $600,000 range. I was hoping Dan could talk more about it.
Okay, okay.
So I did do a third version of the facility, long-range facility, where I tried to do every other year at 2.5 extra.
Okay,
And so it went, you know, this FY ‑26, 0.
Yep.
FY '27 had basically 2.5 additional. And then 28 had a 0.5% additional. Then back up to 2.5 additional, down to 0.5%. I tried to stretch out a little bit because I you know, every year an extra 2.5 is just probably not going to fly, right? That's just pushing too much.
well, we've been hearing about it on social media since you said it at the school.
I'm
meeting.
sure you have.
Yeah.
Yes, sure you have. They latched right onto that. They didn't hear the fact that I said, you know, that's probably not doable. But anyways.
But anyway,
Right.
it just, it's obviously that there is going to be some pushback. on
Yeah,
it. That's
no
all.
question.
my
No
reaction.
question. So, I mean, the OPEB, if we just sort of say the course is fully funded in 4 years, right? And then Sherman's new projection.
I think I think if we state the course, it's shorter. Right, aren't we putting in,
3 years,
oh, if we do 330 this year, which is what's in the budget, right?
right?
And 360 and 27, then we have only 144 and 28.
Right, so 3 years, 2.5 years.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think that's really good. That's ahead of schedule.
Get
And
this off the table.
Okay,
And just to be clear,
and I haven't, so I actually I didn't take full advantage of that in that third version. I just didn't know. I think
can you
about it.
do that?
I could, that'll lower those percentages by another %. actually.
Okay, yeah, if you can adjust your third version,
That would
take
be-
this, assuming we make
That
this,
that would take 1% off every year. So my 2.5 now becomes 1.5 and my 0.5% goes away.
Better.
Yeah.
Much better.
That's starting to become
Big-
within reach.
Yeah.
That's starting to become doable.
And particularly if we can start paying the premiums out, because you're talking a big number, paying premiums
Well,
out.
that's what I'm saying. I haven't
yeah.
counted the premium payment.
Oh, the premium,
I just,
okay.
I just counted
The
the
330.
330. I didn't double.
Okay.
Right.
Okay,
So I'm shorting myself 1%. So that's actually very helpful.
that's good.
Greg, just relative to the rotunda, if that money is sort of put together, that 2.3, that project will happen in next fiscal, this coming fiscal
Happen a
year.
year from now.
Year
No,
from
it
now.
would happen in 26, FY 26.
Which we're working on.
Right,
So it would happen next winter,
okay.
late November, December timeframe.
That's a duration to the
Oh, it's probably,
4-month
well,
project.
there's masonry work that'll be in the spring, so.
They're limited as to when they can work in the water, I
Right,
think.
so it's
I see.
probably a 5-month project,
Okay,
4 or 5 months.
okay. I know sometimes these municipal projects end up, we plan for it and then it gets pushed out.
Right,
So, we're fretting over like a certain situation that may not come to pass. The only kind of thing I'm throwing out there.
yeah, I don't, and I'm on pins and needles right now with that rotunda lasting
Yeah.
this rest of the winter and summer.
Do we have the permits?
Yes, it's all permanent,
Okay, so we just have to go out to bid?
and to do that, we need the money.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
so, I just,
Is there
on
any
a hope and a prayer that it
historical,
lasts.
So
historical restoration grants that we might be able to look at for the rotunda?
And they're just not out.
we're losing, everything's drying up, all the grants are drying up, it's quite a problem. So if it's appropriated at the town meeting, you can go out to bid after town meeting, even though it's not in the new fiscal yet.
Yes. correct. Yeah, as long as we know it's been approved.
Yeah.
But we'll have to wait to the CZM grant, we should know by late spring, I think.
Right, which would then mean,
I mean, Seacoast, did I say CZM?
yeah, you said CZN.
Yeah,
But
I meant Seacoast.
Oh, Seaport, Seaport Council, right?
Seaport Council.
I wrote that. And CZM, we're gonna apply for,
We'll apply, but
and when will we hear on that?
same timeframe.
Okay,
Should be late spring, early summer.
so that would just reduce the amount we pull out of free cash. We have
So
it for next year.
does the AG certifies our town meeting? And does that also mean the budget that's approved? And is there any delay there? Do we not have to worry about that? Or is that only for like articles that are,
AG does so
They don't, AG doesn't approve our
okay,
monetary things. The DOR does when we set the tax rate in the fall,
yep.
that's all that recap process.
But we shouldn't, once we have a positive vote at town meeting, then we should be pretty clear. to-
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Does DOR approve our actual budget or our free cash and,
They certify our free cash.
okay,
And they approve our tax rate, and part of the tax rate is certifying the votes, making sure that what we voted is covered by the tax rate or estimated receipts, and it's reasonable and things like that. If we ask for like a pie of the sky, even if the town meeting voted it, the DOR could say, no, I don't think that's reasonable. I think, you're not gonna make it. So we'll certify it, go back to the table and redo it.
and that's why you say you can't increase the projected revenue more than 10% unless you document it, because that's
Yeah, unless I
something they
have proof to-
question.
Exactly. If I had proof to say okay, yeah, building permits is gonna go up 25%, they're gonna be like, well, how does that happen? And I'm like, well, we actually increased our permit fees,
Yeah,
25%. And they'll be like, oh, okay, all right. And we think you're gonna get that money then.
and have we figured out anything about fees for, building fees for CST?
So they indicated they would be applying basically next January. That'll be in 26.
Okay. And do we have any sense of the number?
They were reluctant to give me a number.
I've heard that the biotech industry is slowing down quite a bit. So they're probably not in as much of a rush to.
I mean, I fully expect the project to go forward.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
not-
I do too. It's just,
I think there's more dynamics involved in this
Absolutely.
situation.
So how many square feet are they building? Like 300,000, 400,000 square feet?
there was 2 phases.
Okay,
Phase
well,
one.
cut it in half. So it's 400,000 square feet. They're building 200,000 square feet. It's gonna cost at least $400 a square foot. So 400 times 200 with 3 zeros attached, it's gonna be $80 million, I think. I don't know, maybe that's wrong.
Oh, at least.
And so,
It's
what is
more
the
than-
millage on building permits?
$6 a thousand.
$6 a thousand, so 6 times 8,000. 6 times 8 is 48. So the building permit's gotta be $50,000, I think.
No,
If not
480.
500,000,
Yeah,
right,
lost to zero, it's 500,000.
500,000, right.
Yeah,
So there you go.
and that's why the question is,
Probably.
do we,
Maybe more. Right, because I think
do
that's,
we include that as revenue for fiscal year '26, which then gives us $500,000 more to spend
well,
on
let's not,
capital?
we probably have it, but I think probably not wise to spend it right away.
Okay,
Yeah, I wouldn't plan on it.
okay,
I just think that's good FY '27 money for capital.
okay.
Sarah, I'm not clear on where we've gotten to on this question of the roadway.
So I think that what we've gotten to, Peter, is to increase the road resurfacing to say 400,000 will come from fund balance.
Yeah, right.
We're going to add an item for the rotunda, which will have 800,000 from fund balance. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then we have no money left in free cash to spend.
So we've essentially exhausted free cash.
Right.
Exhausted,
We're down to the
We're down to
8%,
your
which is our,
target.
we're $50,000 over our 8%, which is the target.
Yep.
But normally, usually at the end of the year, oh no, we have 150 more, right?
That was part of the 1.25.
Oh, yeah. So we're including the 150,000 from the library, which is gonna go into free cash at the end of the year,
Got it.
from this
Yeah.
fiscal.
And where's chapter 90?
It doesn't show up here.
Okay,
That's a slush fund.
right.
So Andrea, just curiously, where do you think we're gonna end up on free cash at the end of this year? I know we still have 5 months plus, but what's your sense?
Since I haven't done like a full run through, but like just a quick run through, I was thinking like 300,000, not including the 150 right now. But that's very conservative and very quick. run
So
through
we have
right now.
300,000 more to spend?
No, it's just
We
helpful.
can put it into OPEB.
Have you seen receipts yet from, is all that pretty mapped at this point? You know, like excise and
Yes.
everything, so you kind of know where that's gonna be for the year at this point.
For the most part, yeah, I've gotten the commitments for the motor vehicle. Motor vehicle comes in last month and this month.
Yeah.
They're usually very stable, so.
The other big wild card is the TBW facility. Right now, we're planning to do 660 as a capital exclusion. I mean, could we adjust that if we needed more money as well?
I don't think we're in a position to put more money into DPW at this point. We're spending an awful lot of money in DPW, and I don't see that.
I'm sorry, 860 for.
Well, again, the 660 is part of capital exclusion. I'm saying, rather than, so it's really, I don't know, isn't the capital exclusion bucket, can we put the 860 all in the capital exclusion?
That raises taxes.
That just raises tax.
A capital exclusion increases the tax rate for that year only, because it's a cash payment.
Okay, we don't wanna do that, okay.
Yeah,
So, okay. So right now, we only have 200,000 coming out of taxation for the,
plus the 660. So it's 860 in total.
and that's basically the DPW because of the site costs, right?
That's to advance the design.
Yeah, but, I mean, it's an admin building and some bins. So the main cost is in the site development, I would think.
I think design is a certain percentage of the total cost. of the
Usually,
building.
but, I mean, is there any part of the existing DPW facility that can be moved up there? Or is that building gone?
Certainly not the building.
Right.
There may be a couple lifts inside that we would bring over, but, that's pretty minimal in terms of the overall project cost. We'll be ready to give a much bigger overview on the DPW facility and potential options for, public safety campus, but we're kind of probably, a few weeks out, after you guys finalize the budget, to, do a bigger show and tell with you and obviously the select board.
Have they finished the geotech work?
They finished the initial geotech work, they finished the geothermal boring. They did do the site survey. I think we will to supplement the campus design, we need to do another round of geotech, which is, included in the budget. So they should be, actually, either they may have already done that or, maybe waiting after this thaw to do it, but so that's the kind of the information to kind of get to the next step, which, take a few weeks to a month.
So there's been no showstoppers so far?
No, actually, the initial geotech was good.
Okay.
There's definitely some fill and some boulders, but, we think, no net import or export of soils and no, bad rock or, unsuitables.
Question?
Yes, Mr. Round.
Yes, just curious, the requested was 1.75 million and what was recommended was 860. Is that because there are certain activities that have been deferred to fiscal 27? Or was the 1.75 number a high ball or?
It's been deferred.
Okay, so, yeah, it's not,
We're paying for about 50%.
it'll happen eventually.
It'll happen eventually.
This is about 50%. So.
Yeah, okay.
Right, so we're hoping that gets us, completely through like the permitting set. So we can make sure that, Concom is happy, planning board is happy, DP or anybody else that needs to look at things is happy. And then we'll move to final design in FY27. There's also, we have been mulling around with the project team about doing alternative delivery methods, so more of a construction management risk model versus a design bid build, which is your kind of traditional horizontal construction. So these are things that we might be able to utilize to do a better project.
And I think we've gone over all the rest of the capital items, is that correct?
So I have one additional request.
Yeah.
So the library, originally, we had the 200,000 for the windows and repairs. That project, we took that out because they're getting CPC money.
Right.
I would like to request that we use that 200,000 to advance the design work and bidding process for the senior centers. And then that would get eventually repaid through the fundraising, but in order to advance it and to create the concept drawings and the renderings that we need to do the fundraising, you need to do that design work.
We talked about that before.
Yeah, I have a serious concern with that. And I think that when we purchased that building for $1 million, we were told that fundraising was going to occur for all the renovation, which is a couple of million, probably more. And it would seem to me that in order to show that there really is an interest in donations, that the library, the senior center should be able to come up with the 200,000 in donations to move the design forward. That's not much money if you're talking about raising a total of 2 or 3 million. And I really am concerned about continuing to invest town money. If they're, we approved that building almost a year ago. They've had a year to start raising money. I haven't seen a campaign.
Right, so we hired a consultant last month to develop a plan and to identify high donors. And that work will take place between now and the end of summer. And the goal or the target was to start serious fundraising then in the fall.
Was the budget for the hiring of the consultant on that?
It was from a state grant. We did receive a state earmark, but yes.
I don't know what other people think, but it just concerns me. I just see this whole project costing the town a lot of money.
I agree with you, Sarah. This has and I'm not saying I don't doubt the necessity or the justification for having a senior center. However, it has the earmarks of, even though we're going through a thaw, slippery slope, shall we say. And I think it is incumbent on the leadership at the senior center to evidence their commitment to what's going on. And this is a great way to do that. That would be my opinion.
Sarah?
Yes, Peter.
I agree with what Gar just said. I think it would give us greater confidence that there's a real support for what I think is quite a good-sized hurdle yet to go. If the folks could put together the money for supporting the fundraising. I just want to note my support for what Gar just said. I think it's well said.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Tom?
I agree.
Steve?
Yeah.
Lauren?
I agree with this, yeah.
Andy? So we don't like the 200,000.
So you're gonna love the idea of having a bond vote, which is
Right, I would,
so the select board has voted to move forward with the bond vote. Not to authorize, but not to actually issue the bond, so that's ready to go when the fundraising hopefully is successful. And some of that fundraising will involve pledges over multiple years. So you need upfront money. So you would need to bond to go forward.
I think it's premature.
I hear that.
There's not going to be any building for a while.
So the goal would be to start construction a year from now. So we would.
We bought $1 million building. Does it cost that much? The 200,000 of design?
Oh, the renovations are going to be massive.
It'll be a renovation and an addition. It'll be a $2.5 million construction project.
In addition to the 1 million we are.
Yeah.
Correct.
And that will escalate, guaranteed. Construction costs are not going down.
We have a document that sort of shows we've looked at these chunks of capital that we have in front of us, like potential for safe building.
Yes, I've got a new like I said, I got version 3, but I shorted us a little bit on this.
Okay, because I find it a little confusing sometimes to talk about these projects in isolation.
Because I don't think the library's on that plan at all, right?
I don't show a library on this one. I don't show the senior center on this because
I'm saying library. I meant senior center. I'm saying, yeah.
I don't show the senior center on it because, again, I don't think we go forward with it unless it's done through donation. But, you know, it's a bit of a chicken or the egg syndrome. I think it presents a pretty strong message to potential donors that the town is serious about going forward with it. Here's the design, here's the fundraising plan, here's the bond to do it once we have those dollars pledged. And then to have that fundraising take place in the fall. And by January, you have a very good sense of where you are. And in the meantime, you've finished your design, you've gone out to bid, and you're ready to roll come February, March of next year, assuming the fundraising has been successful, but you don't do it unless that fundraising has been successful.
I take a different approach, and I've made generous contributions to certain capital campaigns. And my personal opinion is if the town goes out with a bond, then I know if I don't contribute, the town's on the hook. So I think, I
Well, we're not on the
personally
hook.
think
We don't
it's
issue
a
the bond.
disincentive for people to donate. If the town's already committed to spending the money.
Yep,
That's
I
my
hear
personal
that,
opinion.
I hear that logic.
Mr. Brown.
I'm just wondering, so that the fundraising group has been hired, or we've got some sort of arrangement, whatever this.
Yeah.
Are they aware of this concept? And I'm curious what their opinion
Yeah,
would be.
they've seen it both ways.
Okay,
Um,
it's very important what they think, because that affects their ability to be able to marshal the raising of money.
They've seen it be successful both ways. And, you know, of course, we talked about Gloucester's effort and how they've done their
Yeah, I
library.
mentioned that library.
So it's a private library, but the city has fronted the money. They approved the bond, and it's to be repaid through the fundraising. Now, they've gone ahead with construction before they've raised the money. I'm
And
not
they're still
suggesting,
short.
I'm not suggesting we do
Yeah,
that.
they're still short.
I'm suggesting we wait and make that decision until a year from now, after we've seen whether or not the fundraising is materializing.
So why can't we put the bond on next year's town meeting? Why do we have to do it this year? If we're not even gonna start construction until about the time of next year's town meeting. Just seems premature to.
Right, again, it's just that those two different approaches. Some people feel it sends a strong message to go ahead and have that pre-approved. And your perspective, Sarah, and I respect it, is that that's sends a negative message. Some people think it's a positive, some people think it's a negative. It's two different perspectives on the same issue.
What are the sense of the other members of the board?
I'm having a hard time with it, honestly, because I can see both sides of it.
I think we bought the building.
I mean, there's the commitment, right?
That shows a commitment.
That's the
Right.
commitment.
I mean, and I
We
get
spent $1
that,
million.
like, and I don't quite see the discouragement factor in waiting to bond it next year if that's in fact the way to go. And I think, you know, John makes a good point, but I think it would be good to understand what the consultant might recommend, if that's possible. Because I think the other thing to think about, I think that probably the school vote for funding Essex, the Essex project, probably be fall town meeting 26
Next fall?
this fall.
You don't think it'll be next spring?
I don't think so. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think it's one or the other. But they'd have to move pretty quickly to make it for next spring.
Yeah.
Some of the projections that I saw last night, you know, had it as a fall 27.
To reiterate what Andy just said, I think, why wouldn't we ask the professional fundraisers which direction they think is more effective?
Yeah, we can push that and see if they
Yeah,
give
they
us.
do this for a living, so.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm happy to get a more definitive, the brief conversation, they said, well, we've seen it both ways. But I didn't ask which one do you prefer. I said, have you seen it both ways? And they said, yes.
We'll press them a little bit.
Well, I think in particular, we're asking for their advice on our particular circumstance, right? Yeah.
I'd like to keep supporting the senior center, but can we put off some of the painting, window and door repairs in the town hall? There's 200,000 there. can we maybe put that off and do some work towards furnishing the senior center? I mean, it's all a matter of choices and priorities to me, but.
No,
Oh, that's under-
that's pulled
that's-
off anyway. That was the
That
windows
was the
paid
window.
for by CPC for the library.
The library, so that was pulled off.
Yeah, so that's off.
So we don't, already lost that. Well, is it still in the,
That's what he's
Total?
talking about, is
No.
spending that 200 on something else.
Right,
okay.
that was the 200 I was suggesting for the design.
So then I was supporting it then. So I was-
Can we go, so that if we don't spend that 200, that's a taxation item? Okay. Can we go back to the tax rate bit? It looks like you're using almost all of the unused levy capacity.
On the old one.
Oh geez,
Sorry about that.
sorry,
We're at 3.6.
looking at the wrong
Yeah,
one.
sorry.
3.6.
Okay, okay.
Much better.
And what does that include?
So that includes everything you've approved so far in the finance committee. It includes the fire department's request that you just approved tonight. It
Okay,
includes the sanitation that you just approved tonight.
okay.
It includes the 7.29% increase for Manchester Essex.
Which is
That's
the,
that Model
It's
A.
the mo- Yeah,
That's the, what I consider the
that's
worst
Model
case.
A included, which includes the 27%.
27%
Insurance.
Okay,
and then for capital, it includes
Includes everything that's on this sheet.
on the sheet in the back.
so if you pull 200,000,
That was already pulled.
It was already pulled.
oh, okay,
Pretty much.
got it, okay. But how much, we could do the school as an override too, right?
Yes.
Also, I have the 300,000 for road resurfacing original request under taxation.
Right.
Right.
So, and we're moving all of that to,
No, we're just pulling an additional 400,000 out of free cash.
But we could, if you look further down, if you look in the column, the fund balance use, we could shift some of those things. For
Right.
example, we're showing
this was
the Ocean
confirmed.
Street as 100,000 on the fund balance, we could put that under taxation. And
Right,
so there's 306,000 in fund balance. So you could just shift those three items in the fund balance column over to taxation and then shift the 300 of roads over to fund balance. No harm, no foul.
See, all my notes are on the wrong one. But this is the same.
That didn't change.
Thank you.
just the front page,
Yeah.
links. It's looking too much.
So if we had a 2.5% increase in the tax rate, that would leave 350, 400,000 override for the school.
Yes.
And our additional cost is like 1.1 million. Our school increase cost this year was like 1.1 million,
More than that.
1.7,
Um,
keeps changing.
Every week. We were at like 16.8 last
Do
year.
we know what page school is?
So you just a minute.
Should be towards the back.
Page 26.
Close to 1.7 total.
On 1.2.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, 1.2. 1.2 total. Total increase
Right.
for us, yeah. 1.191.
Less the decrease in the bond,
Correct.
so a net increase of 1.1.
But, yeah, but
So if we held the tax rate at 2.5%, what do we think a potential override amount would be for a school vote, roughly?
400,
400K?
yeah, and is that worth it? Or
Roughly
just do
1.5
it all in
percentage
tax
points.
rate,
Yeah.
You
And
know,
Sarah, what would that do to the tax rate, the override for schools?
the total rate would still come in at the 3.6.
Correct.
So is it worth it for that small amount of money? And plus now we've got another 200,000 that we haven't spent
Right.
on capital and taxation. If we don't do the senior center. So that will reduce this rate. Oh, no, you already
No,
took
No,
it.
it's already out.
It's already out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's already out.
Okay,
But I take your point, though. I mean, what's the, if it were a bigger chunk,
right,
I can see that.
yeah.
Right.
But it doesn't seem to be,
Yeah.
I feel like a
Enough.
lot of times we're sitting here trying to guess what we think the voters want to do.
right,
And when you come up against something like education, I think sometimes if the number's big enough, it's worth it to put it in front of people and
For sure.
and let them
Right.
debate it out and make a decision. But I agree, 400K is,
it's not enough.
it's kind of,
If you did the entire
for
school.
town meeting floor, it's just
Yeah,
not enough.
if you did the entire school.
Yeah.
As an override, but that
Right.
doesn't make sense given the way the numbers are calculated.
And,
Okay.
and
And, sorry,
If I may, an argument that has been made of Essex's override is that they segregate the school and ask for an override only for the school. And that makes a target of the schools. And that if, I personally am trying to convince them that if they have an override, they should make it partly for the fire department, partly for the police, and partly for the school. And if we go out and say, well, just to prove that Manchester will pass an override, we're going to have an override just for the school, it's really going to undercut that argument.
okay, that's fine, that's fair.
makes sense.
Um,
Still have to vote OPEB, right?
Well, we haven't voted on the capital yet,
Okay.
right?
Okay, you want to do that?
So we would have another 200,000 to pay towards OPEB from taxation if we leave. No, he's already pulled it out.
Keep wanting to spend that.
You really want to, 200,000?
I started that one.
Somebody moved your.
Well, it's still on the sheet, that's why I'm confused.
Right.
The new sheet is not in the requested adjustment.
Angie wants to put it in OPEB.
It's under the taxation list. Under Article 5.
Oh, you're right, you're right.
Yeah, I didn't move it out of that funding section.
But it isn't in the tax rate.
Correct.
Okay,
Because I was pulling the requested adjusted column into the tax rate spreadsheet tab. The funding sources off to the right is
Oh,
just
I see.
like for reference
That's just
only,
refer- Yeah. Gotcha.
just to show where it was coming from.
Yep. Yeah, you've got that 3015.
Yes, I do.
oh, I see, okay, I see. what you're
Tom
saying.
voted, that's.
So the green column that says 3,015,875
That's the number.
That's the
That's
number,
the
that's the
one.
capital number that ties,
includes, but it doesn't include the 400,000 additional for the road,
Nor the rotunda.
nor the rotunda.
which is all coming from fund balance, so should it have a net zero tax
Right, that
effect?
doesn't in fact tax.
But the requested
Amount will change.
amount would be 3,715,875. Is that correct?
No.
400 and 300?
That would be an additional
No,
1.2, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. What do you ask? What are you adding here?
So,
The requested adjustment would be,
3,915,875.
No, it'd be 4 million. We're adding
What is-
1.2 million to it.
we've got 800 from fund balance for rotunda,
400 in fund balance
400
for roads, so that's 1.2.
1.2.
So I've got 3.215, 4.2 8.15. Is that
875.
875?
Right.
Get those glasses.
And the funding sources would essentially reflect their free cash.
Yeah,
with, 3,015,875 from taxation and 1.2 from fund balance.
We're really only adding 100,000.
No, it's a little different.
because we're adding 1.2 coming out of fund balance. Did you?
But there's already 306,
And six, so it's 1.506.
and then there's
Oh, so it's,
200 from the sewer, and there's 65 from the harbor waterway.
okay.
Are you down into enterprise funds? Is that where that 306 is coming from you're talking about?
Now, the
No, again,
306 is this
on the last page of the,
bottom here, the fund balance is what was on the list,
Oh,
and now
okay,
we're
right, right.
adding 1.2 million. And the taxation number is dropping down to 178,490.
Oh, got it. 1.98.
Right?
yes,
And so, and the capital exclusion is still the 660.
Correct.
Sewer is 200 and harbor is 60.
so again, that capital exclusion, since we already approved it, I'm just showing it continuing forward. So we're not giving it back, but we're not adding more.
Did we had a capital exclusion last year for 660?
Yes,
The year before we didn't, right?
correct.
Okay, yeah.
So that was for the feasibility study. No, for Essex. No,
Oh, that's right. The elementary. Okay,
So I might, well, there might be an extra 200,000 under sewer, because we have 200,000 for plant upgrades, but we all still have the 3.1 million from the bond last year to do the whole thing. Do we really need both next year? Is there
there's an
something?
additional 200.
no, there's an additional 200. So
Yeah,
that's,
we definitely want to keep that.
We need that to,
And that should be coming from the enterprise fund itself, right, Greg? That's not
Correct.
coming from
Yes.
taxation.
yes,
that's correct.
so that's just
Right.
enterprising.
So that's built into the rate that keeps us kind of solvent for the pop-up things.
Okay. Maintenance stuff.
And then for the water meters,
Oh,
we're expecting that we're not going to issue that entire bond,
Not the entirety.
so that
The initial part of it will be paid for through that
With-
meter
as,
fee that's been
before we finish the project, using the money we've collected,
correct.
so that won't have the impact on the tax rate that we expected last year. Okay. And that will hit,
That's hitting people in the bill people just got, they saw their first $25.
okay, I'm talking about when will we bond it?
the plant.
Well, so we may do an anticipation note later this spring, just because cash flow is starting to
I heard
get
that.
pinched. So,
So the bond will hit the tax rate in fiscal year 27. Okay,
we may have an anticipation note payment in 26,
okay.
depending on timing of everything. I mean, you have a year before your first payment.
Absolutely question. If we already voted on that?
Yes.
We voted on that last meeting,
Last year.
so it's being
That
implemented.
was that 7.5 divided between the
Right.
two, PFAS and meters.
And you know, what I
No,
realized
I'm sorry,
is.
sewer and meters.
Sewer, yeah. What I realized is we're talking about, when we approve them, we're talking about the hit to the tax rate,
Correct.
but it's not really hitting in that year.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So it's been authorized through a town vote, but it's implemented, hits the tax rate
Whenever
when
we-
it's needed,
Yeah.
which is,
And when is the sewer bond gonna hit?
That'll be 27 as well.
Okay,
But again, we may do an anticipation note.
yeah, yeah.
You can do an participation note for a while.
Yeah.
And every year that you renew it, you can pay it down. So you don't issue long-term debt
Oh, okay.
in the full amount.
So you take a note, you pay it off with the meter, with the collections.
Yeah.
So just kind of looking out, we're talking 27 now, which means 28 isn't far away. What do we think about Essex Elementary
In terms of timing, you mean?
timing?
Yeah,
I think he
So-
was talking,
yeah, so it's, I think it would be probably like a spring, that 28 construction, and a couple of years at least construction.
So approval in 27. And then starting to hit the tax rate. End of 27, definitely in 28, fiscal 28.
no, he's saying later than that.
I think it's to be solidified still.
Mhm.
I've only seen some very preliminary schedules.
Yeah.
But we had interviews for owner's project manager last night, actually. And some of the candidates were showing schedule. And I think I recall seeing one of them, this was the same OPM that we had for our employer. I think they were showing a 27 fall vote to go forward, and that's to authorize final design,
Okay,
which then takes about a year.
Okay.
And
so fall of 28, early
so-
29. So it's
yeah,
out there.
probably actually at beginning of 29, probably more accurate start.
Which would be
That's
fiscal year
later.
30.
That's later than I thought.
Oh, fiscal
This
year
later,
30.
right?
Oh, so that impacts your long-term.
So it starts at
Version 4 tomorrow.
I don't
I was
go by
gonna
my data, but it starts to, close in on that end of debt that we were trying to bring
Right.
originally.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, by the time you
For the
complete the
line.
construction, it's pretty close.
Yeah, and you don't, when they start construction, you don't start
Right.
paying all of that.
Right.
till-
Again, it's increments.
That would be really good, because we've been
Yeah.
thinking about 2032.
Yeah.
When now OPEB's finishing up hopefully a little earlier. And I think the key issue is we'll have three schools currently on the tax bill. And getting away from that 3-school debt problem, because the high school rolls
Let's,
off.
okay, he's got something we're gonna look at for long-term. Can we hold this off?
Yeah.
Till we get to long-term? Is that okay?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And can we
Be nice to finish this. up.
solidify the fiscal year 26 capital? Is that okay, or do we have to
Yeah.
talk about long-term before we can solidify this?
No, I mean, just so we don't have surprises when we get into the long term I think we're talking about some of this already, like the senior center, what are the implications of going out another year?
Yeah.
So I think this is healthy, but I don't think we need to go out 5 years. What's on the boundary of the current year?
So we came down that we're not gonna include the 200,000 for the senior center, is that correct?
We didn't vote on it.
Personal
We haven't
recommendations,
voted.
we don't. I think anytime you're fundraising and have some sense of urgency, that's a good thing.
Yeah,
And bonding around it reduces the urgency.
right. And then
The fundraising experts may say differently, but
we'll wait for that.
Okay, hold on, Nate has his hand raised. Nate?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say one thing about the senior center. When we did the rotunda, there was a lot of support and I think a lot of, demand for having some visual renderings or some guidelines of what we were actually going to be constructing. So, maybe we don't do the full 200,000, but if we could do some smaller amount that could get us through a conceptual design that can produce, 3D renderings at a, say $50,000 to get us started, that kind of straddles the line of not going full in, but providing people that might donate, a visual of what they are putting their money towards.
Thank you. What do people think of that?
Well, I appreciate the comment and, I don't know, chicken or the egg.
Yeah.
uh,
It seems 50,000 shouldn't be very hard to come up with.
Right, that's almost kind of a fund balance.
No, but I mean for donations.
For donations. Better yet.
We've got a grant right now.
50,000 grant. What I was told that we're spending.
That's for the consultant that's gonna.
So that's
help with
committed to the
fund.
fundraiser.
Oh, the 50,000 we're spending, I thought that we had 50,000, I thought we were going out to hire somebody to do design, and that we had 50,000 to do that.
You got the grant to hire someone to do fundraising.
Hold on,
So we prioritize the fundraising plan with that 50,000.
so we haven't gone out to bid on the design at all,
We have bids. We
okay,
haven't awarded anything.
okay.
We're awaiting funding to make that award.
Well, to a
So-
degree, that's a decision then, right? To prioritize going after the fundraiser before you add rendering. In a way, right? I mean, I'm not criticizing.
No,
I'm just
I-
saying.
Fine, it's, yeah, I was hoping that we could come up with at least some design money to move it forward.
Yeah.
Now, if you want us to try to raise that privately, then we will do that.
I think that's the sentiment, is that correct? Okay. So, if I have this right, we're talking about approving a total of, in capital projects of $4,215,875. Is that correct?
At
The
3,915,000.
We've added 400 to the road resurfacing. And we've added 800 for the rotunda, which isn't here.
But
No,
the
we're
road
adding-
resurfacing, we already had 300,000.
Yeah,
And
we're
we're
adding
adding
100.
400 to
So
it.
it's gonna be 700.
700.
Okay.
Yeah.
I missed.
That was my understanding.
Correct, that is correct.
That's what it takes us to get to the 1.3. Never it is. So you agree with the 4,215,875? Okay.
Yeah.
And then, do we also vote on the funding sources? Probably do, right? So I move to approve, what?
Yes,
I move to approve the capital budget, fiscal year 26 capital budget in the amount of $4,215,875 to be funded $1,784,900 from taxation,
yes.
706 $1,506,000
1,506,000, yes.
from fund balance, 660,000 in capital exclusion.
From last.
No, it's a
No,
new
just
capital
continue.
exclusion.
It's a new capital exclusion.
Sorry.
They're just 1 year.
Okay.
200,000 from the sewer enterprise fund and 65,000 from harbor fund. That all add up, Andrea?
Great.
And Sarah, for those listening, that excludes the $200,000 from the new center, the new.
Correct.
Seniors.
It does not include any funding for the senior
Okay,
center.
does not include, okay,
Right.
good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do I have a second to my motion?
Second.
Maury, second. Any discussion? Are our numbers okay, Andrea?
I had moved everything from fund balance over to
Oh,
taxation.
okay.
And what does it put in for the rotunda? What's in there?
800,000.
Very good, good, okay.
And that is expecting that we won't get the CZM grant of $1 million, and
Right.
that we'll get an additional 200,000 from CPC. Dean's gonna make that argument for us.
Okay. And where does that leave Pleasant Street?
It gives them 1.3 million to do Pleasant Street, which is what he said he needed.
Pleasant Mill,
Yep.
I think it was Mill too.
So Sarah, you have 1,784,900 for taxation,
Yes,
and then 1,506,000 for fund balance,
yes,
and then 660 for the capital exclusion.
Yep.
200,000 for sewer and 65,000 for harbor.
yes.
What's the final number again, 4 what?
4215875.
25,000,
Wasn't that it?
$25 off.
$25 off?
There's no $25 on this. Oh, wait a minute.
875, and then we got 900.
You've
The
got,
mobile radio upgrade,
you got a
7,175.
73,750 here. You're right, it shouldn't
If
be,
you're good, I'm good.
it shouldn't be all zeros. You're right,
Right?
yeah.
I'm $25 off.
Oh, no,
It's-
no, there's a 73,750 and a 37,350, so that comes out to the zeros. There's no 25.
One's requested,
The-
one's
The
recommended.
numbers that you
Oh.
wrote, the
No,
numbers
I'm
that you
looking at
just
taxation,
read
right.
off.
So the change was, I have $7,200 for mobile radio upgrades,
Yeah,
but in the requested
Oh,
adjusted, I have
70.
7,175.
Right.
That's the $25.
That's the $25 right there.
Very good.
so
The
which
taxpayers
number
will be
is
happy
it?
to know we pay attention to this stuff.
Which number
Yeah,
is it?
yeah, it's up to 25.
The 7175?
For the 7,200.
No, he reduced it, It's the 7175. So,
Yeah, 7,175.
so the,
That's a hat.
the total is
The
correct, the
taxation
amount from taxation
Can drop by
is
$25.
875.
Correct.
1784875. You,
High level math.
Well,
But
And
the
it-
overall capital number is still accurate. We're
Correct.
just talking about funding
correct, the
sources here.
difference, no, the difference is this one number was
Yep.
7175 and this one was 7200, so it should have
Yeah.
been 7175.
Right.
Whew. Any more discussion? Take a vote. Tom,
yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
Gar,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes. Okay. Finish that. And the tax rate includes the school, so we don't need, unless the school comes in a lot higher.
Yeah, well, there's the issue.
No, it won't. It's not gonna come.
I don't think so either. Okay, so now
I
you've
think it
got,
might come in a little lower.
do we want to vote on OPEB tonight or wait till next week when Dan Sherman's here?
Dan Sherman.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what he has to say.
Sarah, I'd like to wait till next week when Sherman's there.
Okay.
Get all this up to see where.
Yeah, Andy will send us a new one.
Pretty much, it's just the capital that gets cleaned up.
Yeah, now you've got,
And my links and making sure.
yeah. You've got long-term, you got something for us?
Do you want to do that now?
Well, let's look at it. See if there's any, I mean, you're gonna make a version 4.
Yeah.
And let's just see if there's anything else that needs to be adjusted in the version 4. How's that work?
Greg, what are you passing out?
This is a revision to the facility, long-range facility planning.
Thank you.
The last one we had received, Peter, I think was on December 4th. At least that's what I sent to Gar late this afternoon. What was on my,
That was version
Thank
2,
you.
correct?
yeah, it was version 2 and this is version 3.
Correct.
Greg, would you be able to send us by email tomorrow or something?
Yeah.
Great.
It's gonna make a version 4. Okay.
So basically, the difference between 2 and 3 is just pushing some things out a bit. To try to not have an additional 2.5 for capital on top of a 2.5 assumed operating. Sometimes we can come in at 2 for operating. I mean, our history has been between 2 and 2.5 traditionally. But assuming sort of worst case, 2.5 on operating, and then what additional taxation for additional bonding. And so the top half lists the projects. It starts off with the water and sewer upgrade, which we have already approved. That's that 7.5 million. The water meters and the sewer plant upgrades. So the list includes dredging. That assumes that we will get $1 million in grant money from the state.
Hold on just a minute. Peter, are you following what we're doing?
Slightly.
Okay.
I'm afraid I don't have the sheet, but yeah.
Do you have the facility financing plan from December?
Let me take a look. I'll have to go back a ways to find out.
It was version 2.
What was the date in December? Do you remember?
It was facility financing version 2.
Okay, thank you.
So I think the
December
date was
4th.
December 4th, Peter.
Thank
December
you.
4th, 2024.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
So I'm reviewing the list. So
Yep.
dredging, PFAS, I have 19 million. So the number in millions is that first column after the project name. And then I have Tappan Street, Bennett Street, the DPW garage, showing Essex Elementary, our share being 27 million. That's a guess, obviously, as all of these numbers are guesses, but if we went forward with a public safety building and some major renovation to town hall at 30 million, that should be a 36 million in resilient projects, seawalls and culverts. I'll explain that in a minute. And then 25 years from now, I'm showing a $70 million bond to relocate the sewer plant to a new home.
Which may or may not happen.
And then I show the number of years for the bonds, 10 to 30 years. So then I show revenue, different revenue sources before we get to taxation at the bottom. So I'm showing that water capital fee that we just implemented. You saw the first bill, $25 per meter per quarter. I'm assuming that we would institute a similar capital fee for the sewer operations and the sewer fee.
Isn't that a completely different theory?
Yes, it is. But it's similar in terms of relying on the enterprise fund for the fees to generate that money.
So you wouldn't put a fee in, you would increase the rates?
You could do it one of two ways. You can just increase the rate, or you could identify a capital improvement fund fee. If it would help to explain to voters why their rates just went up so much. I'm showing the new revenues from CST starting in 28 for phase 1 and then second phase in 34. Again, lots of assumptions here, right? So, and then as we retire debt, just taking our existing debt and as we pay it down every year, it frees up money. Rather than giving that back to the taxpayers, I'm showing it coming back towards new bonds. Similarly for school debt. And then, and this is the line that needs some work, but the liability is being retired. So the two major liability, OPEB and the pension. So OPEB now
It'll be earlier.
is going to be earlier. I only took what we were paying in. I didn't add the taking out of the fund, which we can do. So then those are all revenues that offset any need for new taxation. So up top, going back up top, so in 26, I'm showing that we have about half of that 7.5 being issued, and we begin payment. And some of that for PFAS as well. So that,
What line is that on, Greg?
so I'm up top now, back up top. I'm under FY26 column.
Okay.
And so the first line, water and sewer upgrades,
Yeah,
that
okay.
315,000 for half of that bonding, and then for PFAS.
Okay.
And so that requires new debt services of 483, and the water capital fee paying 100% of that. So we don't need any other revenue sources for 26. So then I go to 27. So then I'm showing the full 7.5 million being issued and payment being needed. Actually, probably a year ahead of myself, but this is where the fine tuning can take place. But anyways, it's instructive to walk through the model.
Yep.
So I'm also showing the dredging monies being needed. So I have the 287,000 of debt payments needed on that new 2.5 million.
Do grants we receive to cover dredging, is that federal or state?
The state.
And it's not a federal pass-through?
It's not a federal.
Okay.
I show additional PFAS money ramping up, the bonding for it, and the project ramping up. I show the beginnings of Tappan Street, the beginnings of the DPW garage final design work. So that totals new total debt service of 1.8 million. And so to pay for that, I'm just walking down the column here, the 500,000 from the water capital fee, a new sewer capital fee of 500,000. I've got some retired town debt and school debt, leaving me a net new tax revenue needed of 747,500. That translates to an additional tax rate of 2.5%.
Based on FY26 budget increase.
This is 27.
Well, the 2.49. That's an increase over 2.6.
Yeah.
And that 2.5% increase raised just under 16 million. And then I show you how that 16 million is divided up by project. So of that 15.75 million, 3.75 went to the sewer upgrade project, 6 million is going into PFAS, 1.5 into the DPW facility, 2 million to Tappan, and 2.5 to dredging. Everybody with me?
One little question. I'm looking at version 2 and version 3. Has the PFAS gotten cheaper, or have you just?
I pushed it out.
You pushed it out. Okay.
Yep.
Well,
So then similar drill, walking in 28. So I was trying to get lower. So I pushed a few things out, and again, you can see at the bottom what additional monies and where they're going to. And so that requires just under a 1% additional tax. So in 27, theoretically, we've hit people up with a 5% tax increase. In 28, we're hitting them up with a 3.5. Again, all the assumptions behind it, but
So if this elementary is pushed out,
correct.
then you could push something from fiscal year 27 into 28.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly. So, yeah, well, I don't, in 27, I didn't have any for the elementary school. and 28, I'm showing 2 million for the elementary school.
Right, what I'm saying is if the 2 million were moved to 29,
Correct. Then
then
that,
you could move something to 28 to have
right,
smaller, yeah.
yeah, you can mix and match here. So it just keeps going.
Yep,
And so what I'm showing is by 33, I'm alternating
Yep.
every other year. A high hit at 5% total and closer to 3 to 3.5. So by 33, we're done for a long chunk of time. We've increased the taxes for capital purposes, 10.31% percentage points. And we raised $80 million for capital projects. So then we continue on. And what I want to show you then, and then in 34. So this is where you see at the very bottom, which had normally been new taxes or new tax revenue needed.
yes,
This shows a surplus. As a negative number, that's a surplus in this rubric. So I've got 1.1 million. So that, and you see that number continuing across, that's where we start putting in money towards different resiliency projects, other culverts, seawalls, etc.
Or we can just pay a dividend to the shareholder.
Yes.
Sorry,
But
that was a joke.
yeah, right. I was looking forward to it. But so over the 25 years or so, that adds up to $36 million that could be put towards various resiliency projects, raising seawalls, waterproofing town hall more,
The next PFAS.
et cetera, et cetera.
Great.
That's good.
So, and then in 35, I'm showing, and again, this is all a lot of assumptions, right? This assumes we're going forward with the public safety building.
Yep.
Okay, big assumption. I show that hitting in 35, that we've retired enough and we have new revenues coming in, pension paid off, CST second phase of taxation, so that we don't have to raise taxes. We're able to borrow that $30 million without raising taxes because we have these other sources coming in. Will this all hold true? Of course not. But it gives us at least a roadmap and a sense of what is possible.
Very helpful.
And so you can continue it out, and then finally I'm showing in 2050, I think it is, 2050, I'm showing that huge number for the sewer plant. And again, we can basically do that without raising taxes because we have retired enough, things have, enough, just different factors.
assuming the price of doing anything doesn't increase.
Yeah, but that 70 million is a total guess.
Sure, yeah,
Total guess. So I'm actually even more encouraged. I mean, this wasn't great in terms
But
of,
now you can adjust it
but we
more.
can adjust it by a percentage point with that, with the OPEB.
Yep.
Right. Because I didn't think about pulling in the trust monies.
Yeah.
So what was a big stretch becomes, I think, within reach.
Yep, yep.
I think it becomes within reach.
Is there,
Even if you make the big assumption that you're doing all of these projects, which is a big assumption. Right.
and is there a similar second half to the pensions? You stop paying extra?
Yeah,
and
so,
these-
what do I show that, in 34 or 35? So in 34, I show a big increase in the retiree liability reality.
The 744.
Is that just not pre-funding anymore, but also taking money out?
No.
So below it, I'm showing the OPEB.
Yeah.
We can't
Oh,
take,
wait a minute.
no.
I show that in above, so I can't,
we can't take money out of the retirement. All we're paying off is the unfunded liabilities. The retirement's paid by the state,
so the only,
money coming to us.
the only areas where I can show additional OPEB using the trust is in those 4 years, 30 through 33. Because I've already assumed it in the 1.205 number. I assume the non-payment to the trust.
And 29, right? We don't have anything in 29.
I did, so I started a year later.
Yeah, yeah.
So you could start a year earlier.
Yeah.
So,
But we still have the regular pension payment.
correct.
This is just the unfunded liability.
Because we're fully funded.
No, we're just,
We're fully funded on our past liability.
correct, on the unfunded liability, yeah. But we still have the ongoing retirement.
Right, but it'll significantly cut that back. So, so for example, in 29, where we show that 2.45% increase, we can take a percentage point off of that.
More than a percentage
Yeah.
point, 2 percentage points, right?
How much are we drawing down the trust every year? That's what we don't know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Whatever that is.
1 to 2%.
Right, yeah, probably 1.5.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that makes it a 1% increase.
I think this is very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Obviously,
So our big hit is
the
fiscal year
accuracy.
27.
I would just say on the project column, just as a high altitude, quick observation, Tappan and Bennett are on the list. But if we're looking out 25 years, there probably should be a placeholder for 1 or 2 or 3 others that'll be in there.
Yeah.
So just as a what if, I also think dredging, maintaining the asset of that harbor is important. And I think
Yeah,
doing
how about
a-
showing future dredging? I'm only showing the
yeah,
one.
I mean, even if you plugged in a number at, say, 2040 and started it again, it would probably be realistic, a little
Yeah.
more realistic.
And we'll leave
But-
less for
Correct.
resiliency projects.
Correct.
Yeah, what it
Yeah.
will
So-
impact, it won't.
But there's,
This is very helpful.
in theory, the harbor will be generating
More revenue,
significantly more
sure.
money.
Right.
Assuming those new docks get in and.
Right.
But yeah, lot of variables.
Are we going to increase our fees after Gloucester?
Yeah, I saw that.
Increase their fees?
Yeah.
Keep up with the Joneses.
Yep.
Okay,
So, a lot of food for thought here
Yep.
to digest.
Great.
Hopefully you find it helpful. I will do a new version.
It's great.
And,
Good. Yeah, and if you can send us an electronic copy for
Yeah,
those
and
of us who lose
you can start
paper.
to, well, you can play with it too. You can
Yeah.
do your own assumptions, kick things around.
Great.
The formulas are there and you can do various assumptions.
okay, thank you. So,
Can I just add one thing real quick?
yes, Jeff,
Sorry. So Maury's point, Greg, on the, you show Tappan and Bennett, and there's probably a couple others out there. This is just the kind of facility and major projects in front of us, but my understanding was the kind of 3-ish to 4-ish million normal capital, which typically on a typical year would include, projects like Walker Road or Pleasant Street or,
Yes,
Mill and Forest, like those are kind of separate capital that are
correct.
still, on an ongoing basis. So I
That's
think that
exactly
will
right.
be some of the pipe work.
yeah,
Yes.
that's included in the regular 2.5% per year tax increase.
Right, I just want to clarify that for,
Yeah.
there might be
This
another big.
assumes we're
Yeah.
continuing the 4 million,
Right.
what I call regular capital.
Okay. So I guess we can wait and discuss OPEB next week. Do you have any updates, Greg?
No,
We have, well, before we go to approving minutes, let's just, because we got members of the select board here. I received the agenda for the Monday meeting joint with the select board. our meeting's posted to start at 7. At 6:30, I think there's an overview of the operational presentation.
No, we're gonna do that at 7.
The operational audit?
Yes, we'll start off with that at 7
Okay,
and then,
okay,
and then move on to those budget topics.
okay, yeah. So on Monday,
And I'll be sent, go ahead,
on Monday, there's an operational audit presentation. And then there's to go over the fiscal year 26 operating budget, fiscal year 26 capital budget, fiscal year 26 school budget, and long-range facility plans, to go over that with the select board. Monday, March 3rd. And then on Wednesday, March 5th, we have the auditors in,
Dan Sherman.
and Dan. And I'm gonna ask to start with the town auditors. There's a possibility I might be late. So I might need you to start the meeting.
Right.
Okay, that's why I wanna do the town auditors first. Because I wanna hear the Dan. I don't think I will be late, because I'm doing interviews, but it seems like it's gonna be over earlier than originally anticipated, so we're not interviewing as many people, so I think it won't be an issue.
I will be
So-
remote next week, just
Okay,
not the relevant.
okay.
Did you want to talk about the 12th?
Oh. So we can't do the school until the 19th, right? Because they're voting on the 18th.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're gonna have a good sense of it after the 4th, so at your meeting next week,
Okay,
you'll have a good sense of it.
okay. So the question is do we need to meet on the 12th? We have the annual report to do.
That would be a good time to do the bulk of the annual report.
Well, we usually don't do it in a meeting.
No, I understand.
So
Take the time.
I'm wondering if we don't meet on the 12th, we get that report out, and then we can finish the report the last Thursday of the month. Well, and we'll have time on the 19th to discuss the reports if we're just doing the schools on the 19th.
It'd be wonderful to wrap it up on the 19th if you
There's
could.
no way. We can't wrap it up on the 19th if we don't have a final school number until the 18th. There's
No,
no way.
I know. Like I said, I
I mean-
think you're gonna know
The last week, March 27th is
if we
a
haven't
month
done-
before town
if we
meeting.
haven't done it on the 27th, and we can get it to the printer that following Monday. We'll be okay.
Okay. And I know I do have a ZBA meeting on the 27th. If it's posted. Okay, so we won't meet on the 12th. Is that everyone in agreement with that?
Yes.
That's good, because I was going to be absent on the 12th anyway.
Oh, well, that's why we're canceling.
Yeah,
because we
sure,
couldn't
sure.
Do without you.
Okay,
So I'll have to make sure that,
So I'll send tomorrow to you the final operational audit report. It's been edited.
oh, it's been edited?
It's been edited.
Okay, great.
So not a major change,
Yeah.
no major changes, but some edits, correcting mistakes. A little more clarity in certain areas. I'll get that out to everybody tomorrow.
So Sarah, just to review, so we
Yes.
have, so I'm in March, and I'm just reviewing where we've concluded on all this.
Okay.
So we have a selectmen meeting on the 3rd at 7 PM. We have
Yes.
a regular meeting on the 5th at 7.
Yes,
Our next meeting after that is the 19th
at 7.
at 7.
Yep,
And then the 27th is a meeting.
yeah, Thursday, the 27th.
Exactly.
Is that okay?
Got it.
I'll be away on the 9th.
Okay.
I won't be here next week.
Miss all the fun.
It's all the fun. You love that auditor stuff. Who's gonna bring the punch?
So with this joint meeting with the selectmen, you're gonna have the numbers that we've approved,
Yes,
so I don't have to be preparing anything?
no,
Thank you. Just clarifying.
yep,
Okay. So we have minutes to approve, but Dean, you sent comments, right?
Mhm.
That other people have not seen?
Right.
Okay, so we're gonna defer all these minutes to next week.
Okay.
And make sure that everything gets out to people.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? 2 minutes early. Take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Andy moves. Second. Got seconds. All in favor?
I
Peter. Okay, thanks a lot.